Every single time I have ever coached a group or worked with an individual who wants to move to the next level, it usually comes down to one question. Are you doing the fundamentals? Are you taking care of the basics? Before you can begin doing the exotic, before you can seek the exciting, before you can go for the expanded, are you doing the simple, basic foundations, the fundamentals, which anchor any further growth, any further success? In the last couple of weeks, we ran an experiment with many of you who chose to participate, where we planted seeds. We took the seeds and planted them in the ground. You see, the seed has to start in a dark place. It has to literally be hidden. It is doing the fundamental, the foundational thing, being hidden for as long as it takes for it to germinate. Our growth, our highest level that we will ever get to, depends on whether we are willing to go down to the foundation and stick there as long as it takes for us to germinate. If we don't germinate and begin forming roots at the foundational level, in the fundamentals, we have no chance whatsoever of going to a high level, of breaking to the next level. And even if we do, in fact, the most dangerous thing that can happen is for you to attain success for which you don't have the foundation. Because the success is going to crumble, but even more dangerously, you will burn and crash. One of the most dangerous things that happen to people is when they gain fame for which they have no foundation. They gain notoriety for which they have no nurturance as the foundation. They gain visibility without values that are anchoring them. That's why it's extremely important for you and I, when we are intentional in growing in any areas we want to grow, to make sure that we are growing based on a foundation. During the 90-day breakthrough challenge, which is coming to an end, we were working with these 7 pillars that you see here, all these 7 pillars on the screen. And these are fundamentals, they are foundations. You can utilize them in building and working on anything that you are pursuing, so that you don't get growth for which you don't have a foundation. You don't get success for which you don't have a stable system. You don't get promotion for which you don't have a base on which to base that promotion. Every reliable, sustained, valuable growth requires that it has an anchor it comes from. The tallest trees you'll see anywhere. If you see a really, really tall tree that has stayed in the same spot for a couple of years, it has a network of roots. These pillars, for you, these pillars are the network of roots that we need. The network of roots that will keep us grounded. Clear intentions. So let's apply these pillars very practically to this week. This week, as we start this week, which is the end of April and beginning of March, what are your intentions? What are your goals? So the intentions indicate the desire. You have to go beyond the intention and make them goals. The difference between an intention and a goal is that the goal has a deadline. And then you add the plan. The plan, it means it specifies when you will take action. The strategy clarifies how that action will be done. Will it be done intermittently? Will it be done continuously? Will it be done persistently? Will it be done in the midst of the day or at the end of the day? That is a strategy. And then, of course, tracking progress identifies how you will measure. And accountability helps you determine how will you make sure that you don't give up. You don't throw in the towel just because you faced a little bit of inconvenience or a little bit of difficulty. And the reflection entails you weighing the entire experience, beginning to understand yourself in operation. I had this desire, I converted it into a goal with this kind of timeline and deadline. I set this plan, I applied this strategy, and I got these results. And I know that because I tracked it this way. And I stayed consistent because I utilized this accountability mechanism. What does this say about me? So that the reflection takes you beyond the experience and gives you the wisdom and the lessons that you are learning in the pursuit that you have. So I want us to apply this really practically for this week. And for this session, I would like you to identify a specific intention that you want for the week. If you would narrow down to one specific thing, this is not the time to try to find an intention that covers your entire life. What is the single most important thing that would make the most difference for you this week if you are able to achieve it? Can you narrow down to one thing? What is that specific intention? Once you identify the most important thing, as far as you can tell, you make sure you frame it in terms of input. In terms of input, if, for example, it is effectiveness at work, what does it look like from the input side? If it's effectiveness at work, is it I will show up on time, or I will be very present, or I will embrace an attitude of being interested? So that you specify the intention from the perspective of input, so that it formulates, it dictates what kind of behavior you have to show up with. So that is the intention. What is the intention? Then number two, what is the outcome? What is the outcome? The outcome here is not the outcome in terms of results. It is the outcome here is how many pieces or what quantity of the input you are going to have at the end of whatever timeline you specify. I hope that doesn't confuse you. The input is specifying how you will show up. The goal is how you show up within a timeline. If you say you will show up consistently, that is your desire is to show up consistently. You want to have a great week. That is the intention. How do you have a great week? There are many possibilities, but one you identify is show up on time, right? The goal becomes show up at what time? How many times this week? And by showing up, how do you define? Does it mean you arrive in the parking garage or get into the building, or is it being seated at your desk ready to serve customers or ready for the meeting? You specify it in terms of the outcome, so that by the end of the week, I will have shown up consistently at this time every morning and be ready by this time. You specify it in such a way that we can count how many days. So the goal is to show up, if that is the intention. The outcome is show up how many times. By the end of the week, we can count and we have a measurable outcome out of the week, but it's outcome that is measuring your input. You're not measuring the outcome of the results of you showing up. When will you act? So what are the action plans? If, for example, it's showing up, it's going to entail more actions than just purely showing up. It means you have to sleep on time. It means you have to leave on time. It means you have to be able to dress up on time. It means you have to have whatever you need to get ready from home available on time, so that those specific actions have to be taken care of to make sure that your intention is just not an empty desire. Your goal is not insane because you're hoping to achieve a goal that you don't have a plan for. So the plan is whatever else surrounds it, including the actual goal itself, broken down into the actions necessary to make sure that the goal can be achieved. And then the strategy is how will you act? The reason to have a strategy in place is because you expect that things will take longer than you anticipate. Things will be harder than you anticipate. Things will require more input than you anticipate. Things you thought you would do just once, you might end up needing to do them more than once. So you are going to face some kind of obstacle. Some actions are not going to give you exactly the results you anticipated. Strategy allows you to create margin. You create margin around your actions, create margin around the plans, so that you are able to get there. If you have 15 action items on your to-do list during the day, you are probably not providing enough margin. You need to narrow them down to specific things that have the most value, but that have breathing room in between, so that you're not stressed, you're not strained, you're not too spread thin, you are not suffering through the process, because if you are suffering through the process, you will give up. Being able to have breathing room, margin around, so that you are focusing on the main things. You are working, not just accomplishing, but you're also working smart, working in a way that you can sustain. That's the value of strategy. How will you act? How will you act in such a way that you can reproduce this over and over and over? You can do it today, tomorrow, next week, next month. You can do it the rest of the year without burning out. Who will hold you to account? Because you're part of this community, one of the things you can commit to is to report to the community, to report every single day. There are a couple of the participants who have stand out in terms of consistently reporting. I know Gladys has consistently reported. Sylvia is the other one who consistently reports. Even if nobody else reports, you will find that there are few participants who consistently report. That's one of the things you can do. And you don't do it because of the other people. You just do it because you know it's an accountability mechanism. It keeps you on track. You are trying to give your brain a reason to create the necessity for you to act, to ensure that you don't give up, you don't let yourself off the hook very easily. And then, of course, reflect. When will you reflect? When? I like to specify when, where, and how. How long and how will I reflect? Will I record an audio? Will I journal down? And if I'm journaling down, how much journaling will I do? Is it for 15 minutes? What's my goal? To write down 10 thoughts, or to run the tapes for the entire day? It needs to have some specificity. There's when, what time, what specific time, where, the specific location. Where will you be seated? If you have a living room, what specific chair, so that when you sit there, your brain knows that now it's time to reflect. And how? By how, it's how long, what tools will you use to reflect, what kind of output do you anticipate? Do you live in an environment where you don't want other people to know your thoughts? So maybe it's better if you write them in vernacular, or you find your own shorthand to write it. These are the 7 pillars that I would want to challenge you to apply very practically. I promise you that if you make today intentional and you utilize these pillars to make today intentional, you repeat it tomorrow, and you repeat this process the rest of the week, this week will be at a much higher level than any of the previous weeks you've lived. And that's because you are showing up in this week with all the experience you already have. And once you tap into intentionality, it gives you the power to operate at a level that you have never operated. Because you will never be more mature. Today, you would not be any more mature today than you are. This is the most mature you've ever been. This is the most experienced you've ever been. Tomorrow, you'll be more experienced. But today, you are more experienced than yesterday. Today, you have the capacity to be more insightful than yesterday. Today, you have more capacity to overcome the obstacles that held you behind before. And so if you can take advantage of this morning to get ready for this day, because each amazing year is founded on amazing months. Each amazing month is founded on amazing weeks. Each amazing week is founded on amazing days. And each amazing days begin, each wonderful, fantastic, intentional day begins with an intentional morning. You have already won by showing up for this morning, ready to set your intentions for this week. Except if you don't follow through the rest of the day, then you just have an empty victory this morning. You can make sure that this morning's victory is not empty by making sure that this germination that you've done this morning, it bears fruits the rest of the day. And then all you have to do is repeat it tomorrow, on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. By the weekend, you will have so much that you need to look back, celebrate, and then calibrate for the next week, and be ready to move to yet another higher level. And that's why we do the daily reset, to create an intentional platform where we can act more intentionally. Go out today, decide today that you're going to set the intentions. You will work with clear goals, and you will have an elevated plan to go with it. And you will act strategically, anticipating that you have to create a bit of margin, and you have to push yourself a little bit more, but you push yourself only on the most important things. That's the value of being strategic. You measure your progress, and you remain accountable, especially to the community that you belong to right now. And then at the end of the day, specifically at the end of the day. Specify a specific time for you to reflect. If you can find time to look at WhatsApp every day, you can find time to reflect every day and to reflect at a particular time. WhatsApp is like moving bricks around. When you reflect, you build a wall. You build a foundation that can anchor the next level, the next version of you. So I want to hear from some of the participants here. What is your core intention this week? What intention are you going to focus on this week? I'm going to hear from Wangoi. What is your core intention this week? Good morning, Wangoi.
Good evening, Doc. Is it good evening for you? Yeah, good evening,
Yes.
Doc. Good morning, everyone. This week, I have workshops, so my intention is to organize for the workshops. I mean, generally in terms of work related is so I need to really focus. I had thought about it, and I knew this week I have to be really in tune and focus on the agenda for the week. So that's my intention.
What are the specific actions entailing you being focused?
So every day I do have a planner. Last night I sat down to do a planner for every day. In terms of the meeting schedules, what I need to do. So that's why I said I have to really master my focus, because I have to run this like really, really well. So that's what I've done. I've written a daily planner for the day. But I've also made sure, and I like what you say, that the daily planner, for me, it cannot be too packed. Because my mind does get disengaged a lot. So I've ensured that at least I've only made 3 very important tasks per day, and especially in the morning. My afternoons are light.
What is the most important action for the week?
The most important action is to start my morning well. Once I start my morning well and routinely, then the rest of the day will follow.
What is the most likely obstacle, the main obstacle for you getting to the end of the week with the kind of outcome you have in mind?
My personal obstacle will be getting overtaxed, overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, getting overwhelmed. Yes.
So what is the strategy around that potential obstacle?
I'm just hoping that everybody pulls their weight. The people that we are doing the workshop with will pull their weight.
All right.
So we'll be having.
So 50% of the people have not pulled their weight, and you still want the outcome you want. So what is the strategy?
Just to go with the flow. I mean, well, I'm hoping that.
So hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, it's not a strategy.
Yes.
I'll do my bit. I mean, I'm setting, as I said, I'm setting the daily planner up. The participants have been called, and we are,
Yeah.
and so I'm doing what I need to do personally, and just to do my bit.
So in this case, success does not depend on what happens. The success of the meeting has nothing to do with defining your success. Your success is having a clear conscience that you have done everything you can, or when the obstacles show up, that you responded to those obstacles as best as you can. So you can come to the end of the week successful, and yet all the meetings went horrible. But they went horrible because they require input from 5 different people, and only one person did their part. So you can have, work can go really, really wrong, but you come to the end of the week successful. That's because your space you can clear your space so that it doesn't become contaminated by what's happening in the workplace. You showed up with your painting brush, and the wall you are given, you painted it as best as you can, right? So at the end of the week, when only a section of the wall is painted, does not mean that you failed. It just means if you have a couple of other painters, you can have a wall that is complete. And this is why it's so important for us to learn to separate the outcome, the result, from the outcome that we want. The outcome that I am committed to has everything to do with what is within my power to do, not what my employer will do. If for example, I'm working in the cath lab, there are 6 nurses and 2 technicians and a medical resident and a cardiology fellow, and I come and something happens in the case that goes wrong, that is not within my control, I do not go home feeling that I have failed. And I go home, automatically that feeling comes, but I should not go home feeling like I have failed. My first place is to clarify, is my conscience clear? Are there things I overlooked which I could have taken care of? Did I communicate with this team the way I should have communicated with this team, right? Being able to define your success in terms of you taking care of your part and separating it from what everyone else needs to do. This is one of the most freeing things that you can do. I have interviewed people who show up, they were part of a project that didn't go well, and when you are interviewing them, they can't mention that project because it didn't go well. And I'm like, that is where one of your best stories lies, because that story tells me it tells me you are being honest about what we know happens in workplaces. What happens in workplaces? There are people who never shoulder their weight. Even if they do, they only shoulder it half-heartedly, right? If you can tell me a story where you know for sure, and you can look me in the eye and tell me that I did my part, I showed up and I prepared, I called the participants, I delegated the duties. And when they didn't show up, this is what I tried to do, but it wasn't enough to salvage the whole situation. But at least we were able to have, most of the meeting was able to run okay. It says so much about your self-awareness and your awareness about the fact that you need other people to collaborate for you to succeed. A family needs everyone else in the family to collaborate for the family to succeed. But when the family doesn't succeed, for example, let's say you're a member of a family and everybody in the family, you go to school, everybody in the family decides not to go to school. Are you a failure because the people in the family did not go to school? You're not. Did you do your part? Did you provide the support you needed? If you provided the support you needed, you can celebrate that success while still being aware that there is something that you would prefer to happen differently in the workplace. So, and just think about, that's for you, Angoi, and of course everyone else, think about the main obstacle, right? Think about the main obstacle and look at what are some of the ways you can respond to the obstacle that don't involve hope. Hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. This is my challenge to you, Angoi. You will show up and play your role in the capacity you are in, but I would like you in the whole of the week to think as if you are operating from 2 levels higher in the organization. What if you are the director of the section you are in? Such that you are not just involved in coordinating this set of meetings you are coordinating, but you are overseeing this meeting, but you're also thinking about 2 other departments. Maybe it's public relations or communication or operations. Think about 2 other departments. If you are operating at that level and you have to deal with the problems occurring in the area where you are in another area, find a way to think 2 levels higher. To imagine if you are in the hospital and you are seeing patients directly, think about how else might you, if you are tasked right now to reorganize the emergency room and make it work better, or the operating room to make it work better, or the supply chain, just challenge yourself to just think slightly, go from where you are and just go slightly higher, and have your mind trying to think slightly higher. Give your mind the challenge to be open to dealing with bigger problems. You will find that these problems you're dealing with right now, they become easier. They take it, you anticipate that people are going to show up late. People are going to fail to do their part. And when they do, it doesn't surprise you. You already have a strategy that is not just hope. You have a strategy in place that makes sure that you do your part, you communicate with the rest of the team best as you can. And if that's all that's ever going to happen, then that's it for today. We will try again tomorrow. As long as you continue doing your part, you continue moving, you continue expanding, you continue growing. Thank you, Ongoy. Wish you a wonderful week. Thank you for agreeing to be our mini hot seat participant. I am going to finish this segment there and see whether there is any burning contribution from anyone. Otherwise, we will end the session here and go out and make this week amazing.